Nice to see you all. And good morning. Welcome to day 2 at Groundswell. And thanks for joining us for this panel. It has a really long name, so I'm going to read the name. So are you ready to fully embrace what it means to be regenerative? Woo! So the idea of this panel really is that we're wanting to push past some of the other discussions that are going on here and really dig into, what does a regenerative mindset look like? What is deep regenerative? What are we really aiming for here collectively, and why are we here? And so we have 3 excellent panelists, all people I really admire for the work you're doing. I'm Abby Rose. I'm co-creator of Farmerama, and we make the Soil Mentor app, our company VitaCycle. We make apps to support regenerative farming. And I've been to Groundswell a few times and really love being here. And so now I'm going to ask each of you to introduce yourself and just say a bit about, I think it would be great to just give everyone a context of what you're working on more generally in this space. And then we can dive into some of the discussions. So, Dee, would you like to start?
Yeah. So before I start, I'd like to invite my ancestors, all our ancestors, and our relatives, unseen and seen, those of the flora and fauna world. So I do that because I am a Yoruba priest, and my connection to land comes a lot from my own spiritual belief and practice. So I often describe myself as a land elder, a weaver and connector, and doing things both literally from the soil to the policy world, and bringing the voices of people who aren't normally heard. So that's my work in a nutshell. Yeah, that's the quickest way I could describe it.
That was brilliantly fast, because Dee does an unimaginable number of things and is involved in an unimaginable number of organizations. So yeah, beautifully put. And India?
Hi, thank you for allowing me to come here and talk. It's an amazing festival where it seems to kind of just bring people together and ask these deeper questions. I'm from Jersey, where I do a lot of my work. I care deeply about people and about their access to food. I feel kind of quite connected to how people eat, and I'm empathetic towards the challenges and how hard it is to eat well for the environment, and know your farmer and do all those things. But I also know that in the food system and how we are delivered food, we're off the back of a highly commercial, really sought out, very disembedded form of a food system. And within that, there is a lot of opportunity. And there's a lot of opportunity for redesigning. So I went back home, back to Jersey, and I started a food cooperative there, where I asked the question, why is the farming by the people that I want to see and I love so much, who love the land so much, why are the conditions of the market so repellent of those people? And how can we rethink all the functions and conditions of the market to make those people flourish and biodiversity flourish all the way through it? So I set up a project in Jersey called Scoop the Sustainable Cooperative, because there was many other people who wanted to do the same thing at the same time. And we have been running for 3 years and have 104 local producers that in policy up until last night, because a good election happened, they weren't seen as farmers. And we're a functioning business, and we serve 450 households. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
Thank you. And John?
Hello. My name's John Cherry. We farm here. And this is our show. So welcome. Welcome, everybody. We started off no-till farming, and that was very exciting. It appealed to my meanness and laziness because it's very cheap to do, and you don't have to spend hours sitting on tractors. And any of you who've done a lot of tractor driving will appreciate it's incredibly boring. And so that's lovely. And so we started Groundswell was the no-till show, and then it became regenerative agriculture as we realized that no-till on its own doesn't work. The soil is the thing that we're most excited about improving. And the more you find out about it, the more vital it is and to all our continued existence on the planet, not just that we have to eat every day and hopefully more than once a day. It's important for the water cycles and the carbon cycles and all sorts of other things which you'll hear about at various things here at Groundswell. But then regeneration is more than just worrying about the soil. And I'm sorry, I didn't sleep very well last night. My head was completely buzzing with all the exciting things I heard about. And so I'll probably a whole lot of random words will now come out. But you'll just have to, see if you can put them together and make any sense. But it's we're trying to regenerate our farm, but it's so much more. It's involving trying to involve the community more. Land isn't. I feel slightly sheepish about owning land. I mean, I think it's a very difficult concept, and it doesn't help listening to Farmer Armour and Abby Rose's, keep challenging us with different ways of looking at things. But it's getting the next generation involved. I want to take Groundswell in a direction of some kind of new educational or way of getting people into farming. There's an awful lot of non-farming people, young people who've got no farming background who are just incredibly excited about regenerative agriculture, who are here, and it's just trying to find a way of harnessing that energy and excitement and giving them access to land in some form or another. So there's just a whole lot of exciting stuff going on around farming, which is so important for farmers, and more important for the economy as a whole and the planet. I'll stop there before I say anything really stupid.
Well, thank you. And it's really brilliant to have all three of you here because you're bringing, very different perspectives and like from different angles. But I feel like we are all kind of talking about a similar thing, which is like that there is something more beyond just this soil health discussion. And not to say soil health is important. Of course, I think it's really important. But there's something more that we're all kind of looking towards and working towards, and we can all feel it. And so I wanted to I would love to hear from each of you now, what are some of the key aspects of a truly regenerative or a deep regenerative system? And maybe we don't even have a word for it, but what does that look like? What are the values? What have you, maybe from your experience, what have you seen that looking like? If you want to go first?
Yeah, let me go first. For me, it's reciprocity. And I think, our global food system, we have mainly in the UK just extracts. And what regeneration is doing is, trying to repair that. But as you said, it isn't just about soil health. It has to be about the biodiversity that includes people. So communities are important. I mean, that is the very foundation of reciprocity. So unless we're including everyone in our communities, then we have no regeneration.
Definitely. And obviously what you're doing at Granville, I mean, that's an amazing example of including the community.
So I co-founded a community food organization called Granville Community Kitchen. It's in a highly urbanized part of London, and the area for well over 100 years has been this pocket of deprivation. And we just came together as people in the area to redress that, and literally started with a garden, started with soil, started growing food. And because it's such a diverse area as well, so many people came with knowledge from their own cultures. And, we've built this amazing localized food system where everyone can participate, even if it is you bring a bit of bay leaf from your community allotment plot. All right, but we wanted everyone to have agency, all right, to be able to discuss things, and we do that by sharing food, sharing a meal. So for us, it is very relational, building trust, and as I said, healing for me, as a priest. So I'm an Ianifa and a priest of Oshun, and Oshun represents fresh water, and we are water. All right, over 70% of our body is water. And for me, it was important that we make those reconnections. And Oshun is also love. So which is why my work is heart-centered. So, yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you. India, so what about you? What are some, from your experiences, what does true regenerative look like? What are some of the values that you've seen come through?
It's a really tricky question because I could sit here for a very long time. I have been guided by some incredible regenerative economists that I met and learned to spot the language quite early on through probably the work of Schumacher College. And it just seemed to start to make sense, and Vandana Shiva was the original book. But a key points that I have learned, I believe that Scoop is a truly regenerative business. And some of the reasons that I think that is because we are an ecosystem business in the sense that we sit in an embedded system. We value inner development, personal inner development. We value and understand and want to see how we exist in our community, not in our financial forecasts. And we think about resources and resourcing people and looking at our impact across personal, within the shop, within the farming ecosystem, within the island, and then how the island is represented globally and what that story means, and valuing that all the way through the system. So that inner development is super important. Another one is being confident to continually undermine your own personal journey and knowledge, not in a way that keeps you completely nervous about what you're going to say, but in your willingness to be open and expectant, and to get essentially rid of goals or who we are. So people who work for Scoop, it's been there's someone in the room here who will be able to testify. He said to me once that the organisation feels boundless. We opened up with the journey of trying to get food to a very valued group of people, value-led group of people. We wanted to target 50% of that family or that household's whole bill that they spend per year, and do that forming a very deep relationship with a few hundred people. We need to reach 500 people because when we reach that, we can guarantee with the voting we can get debates in government. So these are the systems concepts. Where is power, and where can you look around the system and leverage values, leverage money, and ignore those market signals that say, go straight and direct to home, sell to that consumer market. We aren't consumers. We are conditions of our community, and food and health is a condition of how that community functions. And being an authentic regenerative practitioner or business developer, you work out your own journey, and it's hard, but you close off to those market signals. By the time they reach you, they're old. Other people are going to be up on that market, and you'll be chasing it. So that really authentic place-based journey really tells you that story and really gives you the confidence to not worry about the competition. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. We are conditions of our community. I could feel it when you said it, and that made a lot of sense. And I guess it must take a lot of confidence, though, because when you're not listening to the market signals, you're also essentially trying to ignore whatever else, all the agreement around you all the time. Do you find, do people lack confidence in the Scoop community, or are there times where people say, what the heck are we doing?
Defending not going online it's been quite a big one. But when someone messages you who is a shop owner because it's cooperative, going, please don't go online because you're the best and only conversation I have with people every week. You go, okay, hold on a minute. What's that online business about? What's that story of that? We are the most inconvenient supermarket in the world. And how, when people hand over time, that commodity that Amazon absolutely joy to play with and the stock market values massively, that doesn't care about you. When a person is able to give you that time, what are the connections that can be made and what are the understanding that can happen? And we take ages at the till. And it's fantastic. And the stories that come in those moments, people around illnesses grouped together, people around interest groups together, relationships get formed, and then knowledge gets transferred in both directions. And I think that relationship between generations, we had hosted a dinner the other night, which was a community through Scoop that I had met, and the age range was 24 to 92. And it was like, yeah, this is some knowledge sharing. And it was centered around ecology. And I think that was really true to being open and not being hip, because that's very generational led in some respects. So,
nice, thank you. And so, John, what about you? You gave us a little taster of this, I would say, in the beginning, but, you've kind of been on the journey that started with no-till and going to soil health, and then it sounds like, you're moving through to a new phase as well. So what does regenerative, or what are the key aspects of a truly regenerative system in your experience? And what are the values that you're, being driven by as you move on this regenerative journey?
I've no idea.
Sorry, hard question.
No, it's a very good question. I think it's it's interesting. Gabe Bryant loves quoting his friend Don Campbell, who says, if you want to make small changes, change what you do. And if you want to make big changes, change what you see. I thought, that's interesting. But it just sticks with you. And actually, once you realise that it's possible to make things better, then we all kind of carry on doing things for the weirdest reasons, and we carry on doing them because that's what we've done and everyone expects us to do. And if you can stand back and just sort of say, hang on, what exactly are we doing here? Why are we doing this? And wouldn't it be better if we did things in a slightly different way? And then once you've seen that, you can't unsee it, and then you're sort of driven to kind of carry on and make things better. And that's kind of why we started Groundswell. In a way, it's just because no one else was really saying that there is another way we could all be farming. And actually, the course of agriculture in the UK and in Europe and around most of the world, mainstream agriculture is incredibly environmentally destructive. And there's a mass extinction going on at the moment, and we're burning through all our fossil fuels unbelievably quickly, and it's just kind of crazy way to behave as a civilization. So we need to find a way of producing food for everybody, which also looks after all our fellow creatures. We don't want to drive them all to extinction. We need nourishing food. We need healthy communities. We need all these things, and it's perfectly possible for us to get them. It's no good. We don't want to just wring our hands and saying, "Isn't everything ghastly?" The future is in our hands, and we can go and grab it and make it better. So I haven't answered with any specifics, but it's just that there's endless things. Every tent here has got people talking about making things better in a better way, and so yeah.
And well, I think one of the things that India drew out was this undermining your personal journey at all times. So constantly re-questioning, why am I doing this? And it sounds a little bit like that's part of what you do. Is that fair to say? Yeah,
completely. I mean, it's incredibly empowering once you decide to change and you do it, and you sort of say, "Oh, I'm going to change," and you announce it, and you're expecting everyone to sort of throw rotten tomatoes at you, and everyone else says, "Oh, that's rather a good idea. We might try that as well." And it's just the power of the positive. Yeah, I mean, it's all. Yeah, the future is going to be all right, I think. Yeah.
I'm glad to hear it. Great. Okay. Well, thank you all. And I think one of the words you used, Dee, was healing from the beginning. And everyone's always grasping for a definition of regenerative. We're always trying to pin it down, and then there's a lot of resistance. Actually, we don't want to pin it down, and it is this journey and evolving mindset, and you can see many different themes are coming through here of what is the experience of being regenerative. But I did see, one definition we kind of were playing with was that it's an approach to healing people and the land. And I'd love to hear each of your reflections on that, and what does healing have a key role in this regenerative journey? And any thoughts?
You go first.
Go for it, India.
I just was in a sort of a bit of a conversation with someone earlier. I'm completely gleeful today, if that's the right word. I'm so thrilled because of the transition in our local government, where it's in the rural economy strategy that's just been written, where people who grow food with a surplus is now deemed a farmer. For the last 70 years, they weren't. They were deemed hobbyists, maybe, and a farmer was this economic engine that had to stand up and be productive. And through that mantra for 70 years, 975 businesses were lost. That's many, many herds, masses of relationships of the land. And people, grown men in their 70s and 80s, come into the shop holding their efforts of their past, trying to keep this relationship alive, crying in meetings. You see the trauma of the economic modelling for business rupture through the small-scale farming, and that is emotional. And that trauma exists within the land, exists within our food systems and our policies, and really kind of seeking to heal that. Bring farmers, bring people who don't like each other, either from theory, through the conservation and needing to feed, our relationship at that separation, much further back our separation of masculine and feminine, however far back you want to go. Healing that journey of separation and all the traumas that have come with it is part of the regenerative process. Holding space and saying that you were a great farmer, those relationships were brilliant, the conditions of the market were unfair on you, and we've got a problem with that now. How do we fix the conditions of the market that value you and value the land and can heal that trauma? And it not actually being about the fault of the farmer, and being encouraged to say, we can challenge these economic conditions. And I think understanding that in a really granular way, which we really got a true understanding of it when we set up Scoop. The big step in that was showing through evidence, through kind of systems modelling evidence, that the farmer wasn't the problem. They were structurally pushed out of the market and marginalised, meant that they could stop feeling guilty and meant that they can stop feeling judged. And that kind of process of healing that trauma can start to begin. That's what...
Definitely. Yeah, so often, people ask questions about, like, why do farmers have CAFOs, for example, or, all indoor cattle operations? And isn't that awful? And, okay, I don't like it and I don't agree with it, but I do always clarify that, farmers are working within a market system and they're running businesses. And I would say the majority of the time, the farmer is not trying to be evil, but it's a response to a market condition, and they're just trying to live their life and build their business. And that so many of us are doing that in many different sectors, and it's just a bit more obvious when it looks unethical in farming than when it does in other businesses. So I think, we can't underestimate just how important that is to do that healing and to remove the shame that we kind of impose on many farmers. Dee, I know you had something to say as well.
Yeah. So coming off the back of that, it is violence. For majority world people, we've experienced that violence for well over 500 years, with the extraction from our lands, with our peoples being commodified. And for me, the issue is the market, and there's a bird, an emblem in Ghanaian culture called Sam Kofa, and it means to go back and fetch it. So part of that healing is reclaiming some of our traditional and indigenous ways of being with the earth, of exchange, right? So it comes back to that reciprocity. Do we have to commodify things? Aren't there different forms of exchange? And I think a lot of the sort of circular economy sort of world are looking at that. So they're not alternatives. They've always been there, right? Just that they've been belittled or dismissed. And how do we apply those? How do we apply the commons? How do we get people to reconnect? So generations of people have been disconnected from soil, from their knowledge. And, to heal that will make such a difference, because we all belong to the earth. We all belong to the soil in whatever little way we can find, be it as farmers or as stewards, even as eaters. I would never say consumers, right? We are eaters and we embody food. How can we do some repair? All right, and a lot of that is, where do we get our food from? Are we buying from the Tesco's of this world, all right, or are we supporting our local farmers and producers? And, we can, from ground up, small communities, we can scale across and, repair things and change things.
Absolutely. I wonder if it's possible for Tesco's to heal.
Big sigh. Yeah. All right. But for me, Tesco's and the big food corporations, they need to be here. They need to be listening. It cannot be about profit anymore. All right. And profit needs to be in people. That's what we produce for. It is for people. And they just can't continue the way they are. So they need to be here. They need to be listening. They need to be changing their practices. And I think, aptly named groundswell, right? We are going to reach the groundswell of people, of communities who will say no more to the Tesco's of the world.
Love it. John, so from your perspective, I don't know, does healing resonate? Do you think many in the farming community would resonate with the word healing and healing people in the land?
Yeah, I mean, for a lot of shepherds, a healer is a kind of dog that chases sheep. But that's, it's. I mean, really, food is medicine. So I mean, so much of you know, I don't want to run the National Health Service down, but it's you know, it's a national disease service really. There's very little about health, and health is a positive attribute, and it, you know, healing and health is the same root. And the health of society, and the health of the soil, and the health of everything. It's a positive thing. We need to, you know, healing is crucial. Our food system is hideously broken, which is why we've ended up with the Tesco's and things of this world. So we need to rebuild that. Well, you know, quite how that goes about, I don't know. But healing. Yeah. It's a funny one. I mean, you know, I think we're farmers are also probably trying to heal their reputation a bit. You know, we spent a long time being the sort of Millwall fans of the population, and the Millwall fans' kind of chant is "Everyone hates us and we don't care." You know, there's and if we can kind of get away from that, you know, we're so much better off. And I think it's, you know, if you've got that kind of Millwall fan attitude, and you say, okay, I'm spraying glyphosate, you know, what are you going to do about it? And it's like, it's a kind of, it's healing. Yeah, I suppose we need to heal our minds about. I don't know. I'm talking rubbish now, but I did warn you this might happen. Yeah.
No, it's brilliant.
Sit with it, John. Sit with it.
I think, and I wonder, do you think, like just thinking about the regenerative, or everyone here at Groundswell today, and maybe let's take some of the more conventional farming conferences, do you think healing as a word would be well received, or do you think actually it's, how would people respond to it, do you think?
Yeah, man. I suppose it just depends what baggage comes with it. I mean, I think you can't really object to healing. It's a very nice thing to do, you know.
Totally, but I guess it kind of comes back to this like profitability narrative, which is what's driven everything. And could we have healing and profitability?
Yeah, I think you've got to really. I mean, It's no good. I mean, we've obviously got to get away from the idea of profitability at all costs, and it's. I mean, I find money is, it's a bit embarrassing, really. Money. I mean, it's not. You know, we're English and we don't like to kind of. It's a little bit vulgar to be, you know, to mind about money too much, and it's. But you know, we're all businessmen. We're trying to run a business, and yeah, why not do a bit of healing on the side? Yeah, it's not. Yeah, but I mean, the whole structure of the thing is wrong. You know, we need, if we're having a regenerative mindset, it's all got to be about building everything up and not just extracting, you know, all the cash you can out of the system in a reductionist manner. But it's yeah.
Yeah. Great, thank you. And then. I am going to open it up for questions in a second. Okay, it's 11:36. I'm just going to ask one more question. Okay. Well, I'm going to ask, how do people get started on this journey or fully embracing what it means to be regenerative? Like, we've talked about some pretty massive things. Like, we're talking about a fundamental shift. What does the first steps look like? In your mind, your experience?
For me, it isn't about undermining the personal journey, but embracing that journey and questioning. And I think I've always done that. I've questioned everything. I've investigated everything. And so when I had my experience of the wonderful failing welfare system that we have that isn't a security blanket for anyone, and, experience household food insecurity, that for me was a beginning, to question, why is it I can't eat? Why is it I can't feed my children? Why is it that I'm in a community where other people are experiencing that? All right, so I think it's always good to question. And and then that took me on a journey back, and also embracing sort of the knowledge systems that I dismissed, so like foraging with my grandmother and the indigenous, both African and sort of First Peoples in Caribbean, sort of not really appreciating those and literally going back and appreciating those and, incorporating that into the work I do. So I'd say embrace your journey.
Yeah, and really celebrating some of the other knowledge bases that are out there that we have been really conditioned to dismiss, it seems. India?
I guess accepting it's so big. Sorry.
But where would you start?
Where would I start?
We'll come back to you.
Yeah,
Thanks.
if you want a second?
I want a second. Sorry.
Okay, John. What about you? Where would you start after no tail? Let's start. You've already gone no tail.
At the beginning, it's where do you? I mean, it is. As I was saying earlier, it's about stepping back and looking at the whole picture, just trying to. Well, I suppose it's a certain amount of reimagining how things could be better. We're so sort of gloom laden. At the moment, the news is so unremittingly gloomy. It's easy just to think, oh my Lord, we might as well just give up and drink ourselves to death, or whatever. It's but actually, it's. I suppose it's having a vision, having an optimistic outlook, and just being able to see potential where there isn't, where you couldn't see it before, or I don't know. It's kind of going back to first principles and learning from God, who does things so much better. It's Mother Nature, just so fantastic. Been working on this process for hundreds of millions of years, and we come along and think, oh, we're scientists. We can do this so much better. And actually, if you can watch watch what nature does and practice biomimicry, you mimic the Gaia. She's been working on this for she knows how to do it. So that's kind of where I'd go from. But it's that's just us on the farm, and then we're producing food, and then what happens to the food? The whole system needs to be involved somehow with this, and we need to change the food system. We need to treat food as medicine, so make people happy. We need to get people involved, as Dee said, with producing the food. It's just a huge topic, but it can happen incrementally, and every step you go down the line is a step to make things better. Yeah.
And I think that food as medicine direction, certainly, we're having more evidence of that here, like people wanting to be able to see how much medicine or nutrient density there is in the food, and that feels like an interesting direction to go in as well. And we can keep sharing that message from the farming community.
And it's not just food. I mean, there's a lovely fibre shed people opposite here. It's all the clothes we wear. It's hideous kind of artificial stuff, and there's all these wonderful, wonderful natural fibres and dyes and all the rest of it. And yeah.
It is endless. India, any thoughts?
I found it hard to answer this question because I don't fully know the audience and the people I'm speaking to. So what do I pick to send home the message that regenerative economics, regenerative thinking is a systems perspective? Which part of that system is going to land with you to encourage you to go and read the books, find the people who are thinking that soil health and people are connected and people's health is connected and communities. There are amazing thinkers out there, from just John Fullerton, Daniel Christian Weil, Jenny Anderson. It is a global community that has found its connections through the internet, and there is so much going on about it, and illuminating and showing the fact that you believe in systems and that everything essentially is connected. So I'm at a farming conference, and I'm wondering, when the people had been invited, when I got back to Jersey, I kind of imagined this sort of marriage or this meeting, and who would be in that room to make the perfect family. And it was the bin man, and it was the retailer, and it was the school teacher, and it was the farmer. And everybody is related to this food system in their own way, based on their own values and based on their own challenges to reach you. So instead of doing who am I, what's my business, what's my SWOT analysis, and where's my market, everybody is your market because you're in food. How can they reach you? What are their barriers? What is their journey towards you? And what part of the system are they from? And how can we partner with all those people around that system and become this really interconnected journey? And that, in the end, makes money. I mean, very, very quickly makes money, weirdly. It's a commercial entity, and people are paid. So it's asking, that's just reimagining that relationship, and that you have it with everyone in the system, and you interrelate with everyone somehow, and they interrelate with you. That's it.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah. So we wanted to open it up for questions. I think there is a roving mic somewhere. Mimi's on. Yeah, great. Okay, so I'm going to maybe first over here, and then there, and then we'll make our way over.
Hello, thank you so much for the presentation. I was so inspired by all the speakers. I mean, yeah, really, really good stuff. The Granville Kitchen, amazing. I'm going to look into that and read around a bit more about that. India, your last statement just now was amazing. John Cherry, thank you very much for hosting the session. It's been fun. So before I ask the question, I want to bring up something that was mentioned yesterday by George Monbiot. I think he said something like regenerative farming it's become faddish. I don't want to misquote him, but he said something like it's become like sustainability. It gets bandied around everywhere. So and attached to that statement is just going back to, I'm not being very eloquent, going back to what John Cherry said about going back to first principles. So my question is, how can we go about talking about regenerative farming, regenerative agriculture without it being I don't know what the word is, hijacked perhaps, and become like this kind of new fashion, but really go back to what John was saying about first principles, nature, Mother Nature, really grounded, groundswell. You see what I did there? Thank you.
So the question, just to go, it was, how can we ensure that regenerative doesn't get hijacked? And regenerative does really mean, or this, what we've been talking about, and going back to these first principles. I mean, it's an excellent question, and I think it's very present all the time in this space. And I'd love to hear any of you if you have a response.
For me, regenerative needs to sit within agroecology and food sovereignty. And so far, those haven't been courted or hijacked because they find it so difficult. And a lot of that difficulty comes from it being situated within culture, with people, and with human rights as well. Right? Whereas when you extract regeneration as just a farming method, then it's easily hijacked. So it needs to go back and sit within agroecology and food sovereignty.
Any extra thoughts?
I think the technical term in regenerative literature is place-based, and what that means is kind of knowing and seeing and working within your land, your community, the community you're a part of. But I was kind of confident that and community was protected until I saw the other day that IKEA and H&M are now creating community shops. So the power of brands and that kind of, it gets a bit more complicated, and it's how things exist across scale, I suppose this is, and how you hold things to account and transparency. And I think that is part of my next journey, is understanding how things, the people in these kind of places, wherever they are, and their journey through it. I think giving time to allow people to develop their inner understanding. I'm not sure. Yeah, it's really that worried me, seeing that IKEA was developing community shops. Seeing when they came into India and Hyderabad and set up at this enormous shop, it was a confusing thing, because these were words that I felt confident that were protected by people. And yeah, so I'm not sure how it's going to go.
Any thoughts, John, or are you?
Yeah, well, I think things are easily hijacked, and and there's an awful lot of greenwashing goes on and that kind of thing. But I take heart from the fact that from our journey, or my particular journey of going into something because I was lazy and mean. It was like I didn't want to sit on tractors the whole time, so I found a way of and that led me, down a bit of a rabbit hole and looking at the soil and thinking, my God, look at all these things going on in here. And then look, if we can do this much damage to the soil by something as simple as ploughing, and we can undo it by no-till, that's fantastic. And then you start worrying about all the other chemicals you're using and you've got used to using or whatever. I went on a journey because of that, and an awful lot of people here at Groundswell are on a similar journey. And I think it's, even if you're not doing it for sort of strict regenerative reasons in the first place, it comes up, from the ground and kind of gobbles you up after a bit. And I think we needn't be too purist and holier than thou about other people's motives, as long as they're doing the right thing. Because I think, the planet Earth is in dire need of sorting out, and it's the most important thing, I think, for the moment is we do the right thing, and without worrying too much about bringing everybody along with the intellectual journey at the same time. Mm-hmm. The crucial thing is things change, and rapidly. Otherwise, we are in deep doo-doo. But yeah.
Great, thank you. There was someone who maybe isn't here. Oh yeah, would you like? Go for it. What's your question?
Thanks, and thanks so much for all your thoughts. It's really inspiring to hear, and I feel like these kinds of conversations and narratives have really influenced me on a personal level, and kind of shaped how I've come to see the world. But something I struggle with is sharing these narratives with kind of my wider social circles and friends, because I feel like unless I know people are engaged, I feel like sometimes it's met with hostility and is seen as a kind of indulgence to be able to really question where your food is coming, or I guess often because it is more expensive. I'm not a farmer, but as a consumer, to be able to make these choices and to really engage, I feel like, especially with the cost of living, some people just don't have the time or the means to be able to think, oh, I'm going to get my food from here, or I'm going to really, So I guess my question is, how can we shift that narrative so that it becomes more accessible to wider groups and
Thank you. So the question is, how can we shift the narrative that this arena is sometimes perceived as, you didn't use this word, but elitist or inaccessible to many. So how can we shift the narrative so it is more accessible? What are your thoughts?
Do you mind if I go for that?
Go for it.
Because, okay, controversially, the narrative comes from, I think, that we need to challenge. I read a bit of Penn Vogler's book around food and class, and how in England we're quite happy to, across our classes, see what people eat, judge what people eat, and then tell them they need to learn to eat differently. And a lot of our food narrative is, we need to educate that person over there. And it's like, whoa, hold on a minute, who are we educating and why do we need to do it? The last time I checked, you bought loads of food and sold it. And what are you doing about your own education and around accessibility? So Scoop is deeply strategic. And at the moment, through this value-led customer, which is yourself, and many people who have time and money, whatever that is, values come in all different places. And people who have food-led values, who don't have money, are the most marginalised people, because they're trying to reach it, and how that's going to happen. So harnessing that value, we own the convenience. Convenience is time. We own that. How are we going to spend that time? Are we going to go for a bigger market? Or we're going to strategically find different markets that will benefit from the food as much as possible, and think about the system to get there. What are the processes? What are the sales, the digital platforms, and the kind of supply chain that means that group of people can access it without changing their habits too much? Because we can do that because you've worked really hard to build up our capacity to do that, because you've given us your time and your values, and working together. So Scoop is on a systems level incredibly strategic. The idea that we as an individual can go and educate everybody to act in a different way is very much a farmer wrong, consumer wrong narrative, which I can't bear, because it leads constantly to new products. And if we go right back to the beginning, health is a condition of the community. Actually, it's about those relationships and how you assess and support people and think of different strategies to reach those people. That person can't get to me. What is their barriers and how are we going to get there? Not, can you change, please, to suit me? And I think that education narrative is to blame for that, I think. So, yeah.
Thoroughly agree with that. And I think, yes, we should be removing barriers and changing narratives, but there's also a role for us to reach in and to reach out to communities and to people, and not expect everyone to come here. So we're looking for groundswell on the road. Okay? Yeah.
Nice. Groundswell on the road. Great. Thank you. Okay. We have in the blue, and then Catherine. maybe we could take 2 questions at once because we don't have that much more time. In fact, we have 3 minutes. So we'll take both questions, and then we'll have final answers, if that's okay. In the blue jacket there.
Hi, thank you so much for the panel. It was really interesting. John, I think you said change what you see, but also it's important that you do what you see as well. If there's a future for regenerative agriculture, then how do we make farming more accessible, viable, and attractive to a younger generation? Thanks.
Okay, great, thank you. And then Catherine as well. Can we just take it at the same time?
I want to give thanks to all of you. You all are my pop star, just to say that first. My question also is about sight, and this is about, I think there's a nearsightedness. So I grew up in Asia, developing country, seeing the damages of industrial farming to my family, to my community. And we're looking at our main funders for Asia, Sustainable Development Asians, are Westerners, in fact, British. So the British public represent one of the highest value of charitable funders from household in the world. So lots of money, lots of interest. And I seem to notice, and this is probably sounding weird coming from me, and I want to support sustainable development in Asia. People are interested with deforestation in Asia, pandas and orangutan, all that. But then when it comes to things that's happening here, peatlands burning, there's no money going there. Civic societies in the UK are not getting funded. So why the money going there and not being spent here? So that's my question.
Okay, great. So the questions were how to get the younger generation into farming and access to land. And then the other question was like, why are we so interested in kind of funding things abroad and concerns of development in other nations, but then we're not even noticing that our peatlands are burning and no one seems to be putting any money there. Okay, so you've got a minute each to give me a summary on whatever aspect of that you would like to respond to.
Really good question. I mean, I think it's something we'll hopefully look at Groundswell a lot more next year, but it's crucial to get access to land. I was talking to Dwayne Beck and the other American speakers. It's almost possible, it is possible in America. If you're a good farmer, you're a young person, you're enthusiastic, you build up a thing, you can buy land. You try that in this country, the price of land is ridiculously high, and it's all to do with, inheritance tax and all sorts of dodges like that. But we still need to get people on the land, and I think, I just want to explore different ways of doing that, and I'm not going to really be able to summarize that in a minute, but I don't think the current kind of tenanted rental system necessarily works out well, but I think there's lots of opportunities for stacking and having people running separate businesses on the same farm and building up their, with a minimal amount of capital to start with, building up a business which then they can take forward and have a decent life out of until we can actually nationalise land or do something like that and actually hand it out to people who are going to look after it. But that's a slightly too radical thing for today. Sorry.
Drop that in there in the last minute.
Yeah,
well done.
Exactly,
great.
Yeah.
Thanks,
that's my minute up. Right, okay.
Okay, yeah, India.
So as I said, work in Jersey. Jersey's incredibly place-based. Going home is what I did, and valuing that as an act, often assigned with shame or having babies. I did neither and felt neither. It was about building really deep relationships with the context of Jersey. Last week, the head of sustainability for Jersey Finance came to our farm shop to talk about regenerative economics. And exactly what you're talking about, is talking how can Jersey Finance influence your forests? That's what they're trying to do. And it's through that organisation. We have a stock market on the island, which the two main companies are woefully degenerative. They change land value, and a few people access the markets. And I said, go there, fix those, do it here, show what you can do on that stock market in the place where we have control. And his response was to me, it's too small. And I said to him, whilst drinking fresh lemonade from a lemon producer that we had made in Scoop with 450 people that we serve, I didn't think like that, and you're here talking about regenerative agriculture with me, and I have a great understanding, and I can show you change from this tiny bit, that you're now coming to us for guidance. And it kind of, looking inward and down, isn't in the KPI of these ESG budgets at all. They don't know how to do it, and they don't know how to go down. So just finding scope to encourage that place-based work, the fact that you need to know what you're eating, where's that material of that building is from, show the, act on that is something that, I don't know. I kind of have come up with a, when you know your audience or you know your room, and my new favourite, I said this to you, my new favourite kind of statement to make them think is, that's 1980s business school right there. And they go, oh yeah, that's when I went to business school. So going back to school, going back to business school, which I'm currently at, you get to see things, it's, again, encouraging people to teach themselves in positions of power who probably wouldn't normally give themselves time to relearn and go home, basically. I'm not telling you to go home. But, look home and that sort of thing. So, yeah, that was a weird statement to end on.
Well, I understood.
1 minute. Radical, John, means to grasp things at the roots. And I think for a lot of our movements, we're skirting around the edges. So England and the devolved nations needs to wake up from this amnesia of empire and colonialism and start dealing with all the systems of power and oppression that they've created. And that includes land. We've had a history of land enclosures here and abroad, and that needs to change. So look at Lion and work we're doing around reparative justice reparations, look at people's land policy, right? There are things that people can be doing. We can be opening up public land, right, for young people to access. On Sunday I sat down in a garden with about 50 young people who want to farm. All right, but they cannot access land, they cannot access resources. DEFRA needs to start opening up resources for young people. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. And thank you. Thank you all. That was brilliant. And may the discussions continue and the actions follow very shortly. So thank you all.